Push is a legitimate instrument just like guitar or piano. And I want to compare the chord shapes between push, guitar, and piano to look at the limitations and benefits of each of them. So let's start with an octave. So this is C to C, and piano is just linear. It's just left to right. There is no up and down. As you can see on the guitar fretboard, you have up and down as well as left and right. Same with push. So this is an octave. Here we have a major third, and this is like the distance on a piano on push if you go from your root to the major third, whereas playing a major third on guitar would be like this. So it would be the next string up, just like that. Okay, let's play a perfect fifth. So this is where you can see how push and guitar are laid out the same in this regard. So when we talk about the y-axis, that's up and down. Push is laid out in fourths, just like the lowest four strings of guitar. So if we start at E, we have E, A, D, G. But then when we go to B, instead of being right here, we go here. So we have E, A, D, G, B, E. See how it kind of offsets over to here. Now obviously on piano, that just goes left to right. Now minor third, similar with guitar. You can play the root here and the minor third there on guitar and on push. If we were to play this an octave up, it would be right there. So if that was on the B string, it would look like that. But since we're on push and it's fourths all the way up, it looks like this on push and like that on guitar. On piano, it's kind of a stretch going from C to E flat. And this is where the layout of push limits how you can voice things horizontally from left to right. So to reach for notes like this, like a minor third with a third up an octave, we grab it up here versus looking for it way over here. Okay, we also have major seventh. So it's the same on the lowest four strings of guitar. If you're playing up here, it would be one more fret up because of that B string. Now minor seven, just move one note down. All right, so we have octave, perfect fifth, major third, minor third, major seven, minor seven. Then a ninth just looks like that. So it's really easy to grab up top like this on push versus trying to reach over here. Like if you're doing one-handed voicings, you could just play that note right there. Now that we've looked at some important intervals, let's check out some triads. So for the third, we can play that like we would on piano, just left to right. But that fifth, we're going to play like we do on guitar. So playing a major triad in this position on push is a mixture of the positioning on piano and guitar. So minor third, very easy on push. We just take that third down a half step. So there's a minor third. Okay, let's look at a major seven. So this is just root position. You can see on piano, it's just like stacking thirds, starting from C. So we have C, E, G, B. So with guitar, you might take the third up an octave like that. You could also omit the third or omit the fifth. Now this doesn't change too much about how it's laid out on piano, but there's a limitation with this specific root voicing on guitar where you're limited on where you could play this exact voicing. So it might be more common to take that third up an octave like that. Now for minor seven, you could play it on push like this, where you have root, minor third, fifth, minor seventh. You could play this like a diamond shape. If you want to do a one-hand voicing, you could just leave the fifth out. So you have root, minor third, minor seven. You could also just leave the third out and just play root, fifth, minor seven. That's the exact same on guitar, at least if we were playing from this same starting point from C3. But if we wanted to play this exact voicing, same thing as earlier, we're limited on how exactly we can play this on guitar. But if we took that third up an octave, that's a really easy one to play on guitar. So this is very similar to like a bar chord, C minor 7, where you would bar basically this fret where C is on. this 3rd fret. So imagine I'm barring this and then playing the 5th here and up an octave. So let's look at 9 chords. So here's a major 9 chord in root position. You can see on piano it just goes left to right. Now on push, the more notes we start adding, the more options that we have in where exactly we place our fingers. For this one, you could say root 3rd, 5th, 7th, 9th. It's like a 2-hand voicing. You could also play root 3rd, 5th, 7th, 9th. I prefer playing this way if I'm playing a bigger extended chord like this, just because I can always play this one-handed voicing that still spells out major 7. And then I can play some of the other notes like the 3rd and the 9th over here. But let's play around with how you might voice this on guitar. So let's say we had root 5th, 7th, and 9th. So that's a common way that you might play that on guitar. On piano, obviously, it's just left to right. And let's look at minor 9 chords. So on a minor 9 on push, we have root, minor 3rd, perfect 5th, minor 7, major 9. Now on push, if you want to play this with one hand, I would just take the 5th out. So you could play root, minor 3rd, minor 7, major 9. And now that is very similar to how you would voice a minor 9 chord on guitar, starting from like the A string. This note would look different, so visually it would look like this on guitar, but because that B string isn't a 4th above the G string, we got to play that right there. For overall visualization, I think piano is very straightforward. It's just linear and follows this stacking thirds kind of layout, moving from left to right, that stays consistent. On push, the grid layout makes it very logical and very easy to learn a shape and then apply it and learn voicings of that shape once you get it down. Now for voicing chords, piano has limitless options for how it can voice because it just has all the notes laid out from left to right. Whereas with guitar, there are some limitations because there's only 6 strings. And if you're lucky, you only have 4 fingers with your left hand or right hand that you can use to position on the fretboard. Now, of course, you can bar chords, but you're still limited to just 6 notes. And which octave you want certain notes from your chords laid out will be dictated by the limitations of the guitar layout. Push is somewhere in between where you have more voicing options available to you, but it's more limited than piano because horizontally we don't have as many notes as piano, but vertically we have more notes than guitar. So push kind of falls somewhere in between when it comes to voicing possibilities. Now let's talk about ergonomics. Now piano, the biggest limitation is just how far your hands can stretch. On guitar, it might be difficult for some people to bar chords or push all the notes down without buzzing and rattling and them not resonating properly. So there's a little bit of a learning curve there and making sure, your posture and your wrist is straight and everything like that. With push, the ergonomics is its own kind of thing where there's different pads where you could play the same note on. It can be easy to get a little twisted up with your finger positions when you're starting out because it's not as clear cut and decided as say guitar or piano. But after you get the hang of it, it is nice to have some options for how you can position your fingers to play the same voicing on push. Now in terms of learning curve, all 3 instruments have their own learning curves. I think piano, there's probably more resources out there to learn how to play piano, but not everybody thinks left to right. For some people, the layout of guitar makes more sense to them. For other people, the layout of piano, where it's all just left to right, makes more sense to them. And for some people, it's all confusing. And then lastly, let's talk about expressiveness. Now, guitar, obviously, you could bend notes, you can slide them, you have whammy bar, you have ways to interact with the guitar to get the sound to change and to articulate what you're playing in different ways. Now, piano, you have different pedals, but you also have a lot of sensitivity in how hard and how you interact with the physical keys compared to like most MIDI keyboards. So like a real piano, I would say is much more expressive than a standard, VST or plug-in virtual type of piano. Not to say there aren't good ones out there, but an acoustic piano, just like an acoustic drum, is just inherently more expressive than a VST version. Now, Push is a little different, where at face value, there might not be a ton of expressive elements or expressive tools at your disposal. But with Push 3, you have MPE, so you can get in and map, slide, and pressure and pitch bend to different parameters and design your own expression that you can't achieve with guitar or piano. Now, obviously, that requires a little bit of work on your end, or people like myself, to make instruments, make patches that lend themselves to the capabilities of something like Push. But even if you're using a Push 2 or Push 1 or something like a Move, you could still map and manipulate different parameters of effects using velocity and aftertouch and note off, and get creative with things like that. All right, thank you for watching. I hope you found this interesting. If you liked the video, leave a comment, subscribe. Let me know what's your favorite instrument between the three, or let me know how crazy I am for putting my time into playing an instrument like Push. Got new classes coming soon, new YouTube video schedule, so please stay tuned. I'll see you in the next one.